Most of us are aware of the stages of grief. These were created by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969, and those stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. However, the problem is that many people, the psychology world, society, have adopted those stages of grief for all grief. And in quoting Miss Ross, On Death and Dying, which is the study, the book, whatever she had produced with these stages. On Death and Dying was never a study of grief and bereavement. It was a discussion of some key emotional reactions to the experience of dying. And then the Kubler-Ross Foundation goes on to say that it is merely a set of categories artificially isolated and separately described, and that Kubler-Ross repeatedly warned that they overlap, occur together, and may not at all be present. And then David Kessler, who co-authored with Kubler-Ross a book called On Grief and Grieving, said the 5 stages are tools to help us frame and identify what we may be feeling, but they are not stops on some linear timeline in grief. This is what I believe, that the 5 stages of grief are exceptionally not intended for any traumatic loss that we may be feeling of someone or something that we love. Grief, as defined by the grief recovery method, which is what I'm certified in, is the unmet hopes, dreams, and expectations that come after losing something that was supposed to be there or you anticipated to be there long term, and it is there no longer. It is also the undelivered communication of emotional nature. It's the things we wish we would have said, done differently, better, or more. With all of this in mind, the stages of grief that Kubler-Ross came up with was about somebody getting a diagnosis, a terminal diagnosis for themselves. And they would go through those various stages in processing that they were going to die. But when we are dealing with traumatic loss of the people that we love, of the things that we dreamed of, those stages, anger, bargaining, like when I wish you would have taken me, God, or something like that. Like, those things exist. But it is not, as David Kessler said, a linear timeline. It is, in fact, a scribbled up, jumbled mess of chaos. And you could be over here 1 second and over here another and over here 2 seconds later and over here. Like, it's all over the place. And I think when we get stuck in those stages of grief and we're trying to name exactly what we're feeling in an exact moment, we are focusing too much on the wrong thing. What we should be focusing on is acknowledging the things we wish we would have done differently, better, or more. The things that we wish we would have said to that person, even if we can't anymore. And I'm not talking just about death. I'm talking about estrangement from people that we love. Somebody that's supposed to be in your life but won't be anymore. There are unmet expectations. There are undelivered communications that you will never get to deliver without them getting defensive. But you should be saving them to someone. Giving things a voice is super, super powerful. That's actually how we address things with the grief recovery method, which is what I'm certified in and what our organization provides. If you're interested, more information about that is on our website at oawphoto.org under the grief recovery tab. This is a free service available to the community, though we do ask for donations from community members of any amount in order to keep the program going for free for our recipients. All of that to say, this is not a sales pitch. This is me being very passionate, as if you couldn't tell, about how we approach grief in our society. And when we're trying to limit it to 5 stages, then we're putting expectations on what grief looks like. And there should be no expectations. There should be no timeline. Grief is ongoing. It is perpetual. It is for the rest of our lives. It is how we learn to cope with it. It's how we learn to build our life around it again and find capacity for happiness again. That's what matters. It's not trying to get rid of it, because we can't. We can't put it in these little boxes, these little stages. That's not real. I'm happy to talk to you more about it if you have questions about my position in more detail. I will talk for ages. But I just had to get this little chip off my shoulder.